On tonight's Cover One Buffalo podcast, we are going to be doing the AFC East preview panel. But first, our guys, Handsome Jack.
Broadcasting live to Bills Mafia worldwide with Greg Tompsett and Aaron Quinn.
Welcome to the NFL. Doesn't matter what's happened before today. Today's a brand new day. It's a brand new season.
Your number one podcast for objective Buffalo Bills coverage. No matter where you are, we got you covered.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, tonight, joined by three new delightful partners in crime. Aaron had the audacity to take his family on a vacation to spend quality time with his family instead of hanging out with me on a random Wednesday night, but we'll let it pass for the moment. As you can see, we have an esteemed panel here. First, joining us from Dolphins Talk, Miss Marisa Marino. How we doing?
I'm doing great. Super glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. And co-owner of Jets X Factor and host of the Cool Your Jets pod, Michael Nania. How we doing, Mike?
I'm doing about as well as someone who covers the Jets possibly can. Thanks so much for having me.
Great tone for the show already. And from 98.5 The Sports Hub and host of the Patriots Catch-22 podcast, Mr. Alex Barth. Alex, how we doing?
Hey, how we doing, guys?
Good. It's interesting. We'll get into all the fun of the different pieces. I think I'm a little bit older than you guys, so I grew up very much in different phases of the rivalries of the division, and I came up very much in like Kelly versus Marino. So a lot of my early years were a lot of the Bills versus Dolphins and the Dolphins dominance in the 70s, and then the time in the 90s as the Bills came back to things, and then obviously it switched so dramatically with the Patriots and then their dynastic run through everything that it didn't even, I would always joke, like we were a rival, like a hammer's a rival with a nail. Like it wasn't fun. Like you need, like, at least the Dolphins would steal one every year. We would never even get that fun out of it. And then you had the fun Rex run with the Jets and the spike there, but never enough to like sustain the hatred back and forth to build anything. And now it's kind of flipped back the other way a little bit, where now the Bills have had their hot run finally. I think I suffered long enough to have it come back around. So I thought the best way to start tonight, and to kind of, before we get into some of our fun awards and some of the other pieces, we'll just go around and coming into the season, some expectations, a bit of a vibe check on, hey, how are things looking and where are we feeling about it. We'll do some things tonight about some season win total over-unders and some projections and feelings about the rest of the teams. But let's start with just a little bit of an intro on our team. Obviously, last night, I got to watch Hard Knocks. You could have asked me a long time. Being a Bills fan was kind of like being that fan of the fun indie band. Like, it's cool that I'm a fan of them, but I know nobody else is really a fan of them. And now it's kind of weird that like I live in Cleveland and my neighbor has a Josh Allen jersey and like roots for the Bills. Like it's very, very foreign to a lot of us. So I'm enjoying it, but it's still getting some used to. Marisa, why don't you have us open us up here? How are things with the Dolphins? I know there's a lot of discussion out there with some of the more famous players to it, so some health concerns.
Mm-hmm.
Where are the vibes around the Dolphins fan base?
Yeah, vibe check. I mean, it's kind of, I feel like it's where we always are. Can Tua stay healthy this upcoming season? How many games can he be available for? Will he practice self-perseverance and not throw a pick and then try to tackle the guy to stop him from getting a touchdown? I mean, how is Tua going to do? If Tua can stay healthy, this team, I think, has a real opportunity. Now, I'll talk about some positives first because I don't want to throw all the negatives out there. Positives, there's, our run game. I think if Mike McDaniel can stay consistent with that, we've seen some really great things in camp out of Alexander Mattison. He's looking really wonderful, great power back kind of guy. Of course, we have Devon Achane, who is just a speedster, and then Jalen Wright as a rookie in his second year coming into the system. So I think our run game can have potential to be really good this year. But again, that's also going to be dependent on the offensive line, which for the Miami Dolphins is always a huge point of concern. Teron Armstead left us, retired. So now you're putting in Patrick Paul, second-year rookie. I'm curious to see what this line looks like. The problem is if the injury bug bites them again, there's not a lot of depth in this O-line room. So that's a pretty big concern. And as we know, if O-line doesn't stay healthy and isn't able to protect Tua, it's not a good look. So that's on that side of the ball. And then real quickly to touch on the defensive side, the front seven looks absolutely killer. Sealer just got his extension, which kudos to him. Bradley, Chubb, Jalen Phillips are coming back fully healthy. Chop Robinson, hopefully he can come back and have a huge year. My biggest concern for this team out of everything right now is the cornerback room. The cornerback room looks completely different. You've got Storm Duck, who when they put out their predicted roster depth today, Storm Duck is your starter, which is great. He's done well. And then Kendall Sheffield. Just not a lot of names you would think for starting cornerbacks for the NFL. And the depth doesn't really go much further than that. So there's a lot of questions still hanging in the air for Miami, and that seems to be the common with every season. So pretty much par for the course.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Michael, how about with the Jets?
Yeah, I mean, the Jets find themselves in a really interesting team building sort of position. They're no longer in the position of the past 2 years when Aaron Rodgers was here and it was championship expectations. That's out the window. I think the expectations have lowered, but they're also not in this position where, they're rebuilding. There's still a lot of talent on this roster, especially at the top of it. I think there are depth issues that they're still that will take a few years to kind of iron out after many years of poor drafting and going all in on veteran players the last 2 years. It's going to take a few years to really round the roster out, but the top of it does have quite a bit of talent, especially on the defensive side. And then still offensively, you have Garrett Wilson, you have Breece Hall, and an offensive line that has 3 first-round picks at this point drafted by the team, a second-round pick in Joe Tippmann, and John Simpson, who was very solid as a free agent last year. So the offensive line is looking good. That's something that has not been a point of emphasis for this team in the past few years. So it's an interesting transition point. You have a new head coach, new regime, new quarterback, top-end talent, but they're also not quite in a championship contention sort of position. So I think the main goal for this team right now is to sort of establish a new culture, a new philosophy, instill a couple of these, on both sides of the ball. You have Steve Wilks at defensive coordinator. Aaron Glenn will also be a part of building that defense. Then offensively, you have a first-year offensive coordinator in Tanner Engstrand coming over from the Lions, formerly their passing game coordinator. So I think it's about instilling a new culture. The Jets have lacked accountability. They've been a circus the past couple of years in the Aaron Rodgers era. I think they want to move on from that, become more of a professional, sustainable type of organization, establish these new schemes, and hopefully be a solid team that could play meaningful football into December. I think that's the baseline goal that they could build upon in the years to come as they try to become a more sustainable competitor in the AFC. I think that's where they're at right now. It's not the highest of expectations, but it's also not a point where, the Jets are trying to tank this year and go for a top draft pick. They have the talent to win some games. It really just comes down to what type of season you're going to get from Justin Fields, because they're in that transition stage at quarterback. If they had a star quarterback on this roster, it would probably be a completely different outlook. But the bridge position at quarterback really summarizes where the franchise as a whole is kind of at right now. It's just a transition stage.
Yeah, I'll save some of it for when we get to the over/under projections and things like that. But I do think there's a decent chance of a coach I do respect in Aaron Glenn instilling a hard-nosed philosophy with a talented defense, offensive line, and a run game that you're going to end up with those like weird games in December that I remember oh so well, where like strategically, you shouldn't be rooting for the team to win, but like you're rooting because it's 16-13 and we have a chance to win this game. And they're like, shit, we're gonna draft 7th. I'm so mad.
Yeah.
I definitely can see some of those coming because I think that, like you said, that defense and run game is gonna make it very feasible for that. Alex, on talk about going from kind of that environment last year to I was actually shocked. Our producer Colin was telling me before the show the Patriots are favored in 11 out of 17 games.
Yeah.
It's so talk about the vibes around the team. Obviously, I think there's a fair amount of buzz. New coach, obviously a quarterback that showed a lot of exciting flashes last year. A very workman-like offseason of like, hey, let's just raise the floor and get the right pieces into these different places. Where are you at? And I dare I ask, has the hype gone too far?
I mean, with some people, but that's this time of year. The hype goes too far for everybody. The vibes are high. Last year was a mess. Last year was a mess kind of from the beginning. Really, the last 2 years. Bill Belichick's last year with the uncertainty at quarterback and Mac Jones falling apart, and there were issues coming out of the Matt Patricia offensive coordinator experiment. It just never felt tied together. Last year, Gerard Mayo was not ready for the job. That became apparent relatively quickly. And credit to the team. They won and done them, which is not easy to do. You see teams, kind of err on the side of caution with that thing. Coaches don't get one and done in the NFL often. They did. They go out. They had Vrabel. They had so far to go. I think that was some people's biggest hesitation from where they were last year roster-wise. It's been a good start to camp. It was funny. The last couple days, they'd actually started to struggle as things got more real, as they started simulating situations, using down and distance, running the clock, red zone. And then today they have their joint practice against the Commanders, and they were awesome. Like, they were the better team on the field today against a team that was in the NFC Championship game last year. May looked good. The offensive line held up. The defense, without the 2 starting corners, is clamping, and it's Washington's wide receivers who suck. But it was still a good effort. The pass rush was there. So after today, people are very, very excited. But, the vibes are up. The idea is that Drake May has some talent. He has some rare abilities. They actually spent money and put a team around him this year. They didn't do that last year. They sat on all their cap space last year. Their biggest free agent addition was Antonio Gibson. And this year they go out. They maybe didn't have that massive. I guess Milton Williams was a massive splash. He's not a premium position. But like you said, workman offseason, raise the floor, just veterans to stabilize the thing. And the idea is Vrabel's going to kind of bring it all together and put it all together and just kind of elevate what's been a poorly coached team, even going back to the last year or two of Belichick. So I think some people are more realistic about what a raised floor means. They also have, and you guys probably have somewhat similar with your teams, the schedule sucks. Like, the AFC is not good. And then the Patriots also get all the teams that were the worst of the AFC because of where they finished in the division. So it's a pretty easy schedule. It's a team that's had significant improvement. It's a team that's had a better coach. Mike Vrabel has been pretty big on the idea that the first step of his program is simply being good enough to capitalize on bad football. They're going to face a lot of bad football this year. So, I'm at like 7, 8, 9 wins, flirting with 500, flirting with one of those final playoff spots. Talk to some people that go up into double digits, even 12 and 13. That's probably a year or two away. I see the vision to get there. They're still not quite there just yet. Maybe if they had Terry McLaurin, we can talk a little bit more about that. But, after back-to-back 4-win seasons, I think people are relatively optimistic.
Yeah, and we'll talk tonight probably in the next 2 sections here. I think there's legitimate reason for it, and my biggest compliment I can always give is like, I'm kind of annoyed that the Patriots have done pretty well in their rebuild and brought some pieces back. We'll see. I do think some people are getting a little out over their skis of exactly how exciting this season will be, but I think that leads us into our first real question to go around on. And I challenge everybody not just to who will go over, but who do we think, which team is most likely to exceed their Vegas over-under by 2+ wins? So at first I had to look and see, what does that mean? And Vegas basically has that in reverse order of the highest wins, because for the Bills to exceed it by 2, they need to go be over 14.5 and almost get 15 wins. The same thing. The Patriots are actually next. I didn't know exactly what to expect. I kind of thought the Dolphins would be barely ahead of the Patriots just on pedigree in the recent seasons. Vegas, from what I see in FanDuel, the second highest division odds is actually Patriots slightly ahead of Dolphins, and they had the Patriots, I see 8.5 as a total. So like they have them as the least likely to go 10.5 because that's getting higher. Same things. I see Dolphins at 7.5, so 9.5 was the next. And Vegas picked the Jets as the most likely because when the win total is only 5.5, it's not as hard to get to 7.5 to get there. I'll start, and then we'll go to Michael. I had kind of played around. I do think that I think the hype's gotten a little bit farther on the Dolphins or on the Jets than I expected. I think people are a little. I think we're almost now. Obviously, the risk of Tua getting hurt or the offensive line being there has almost taken away from. Yeah, but he might not get hurt, and like we've seen what this team has done when he doesn't. So I was really torn there. I do think that the variance on the Patriots for me is wider, so I'll go with them as my one that would exceed by as much. I do think that there's a wider range of those outcomes with how much is going to be on May's plate. But Michael, we'll start with you. What is your pick for the team that you think is most likely to exceed their Vegas over/under by 2+ wins?
Yeah, I think I have to go with Miami because, like you said, I think when Tua's been healthy, this is, I think a pretty solid 10+ win team. If you get the 17 games, which big question mark, obviously, but if he's out there, I think it's a pretty comfortable surpassing of that 7.5. They have a great front seven, as Marisa said. I think that's a huge part of, they've struggled to win games late in the season, but as long as that front seven is healthy, that's a unit that could help you get some of those late game wins or late season wins that they've struggled a little bit to get. So there's a floor with the Dolphins, obviously, because, you have an injury prone quarterback and Zach Wilson is right behind him. So that's a little scary, but the ceiling makes it appealing for me to see them surpass that. So I think about the Jets a little bit just because of, as you said, the fact that they have the lowest expectations gives them the most room to surpass it. And I think there's maybe a higher floor than people realize because of the offensive line that they built, the pieces they have on defense, but just because of quarterback with Justin Fields and not knowing where he's going to end up, they could very easily fall under that number as well. So I think Miami would be my pick.
Alex, how about you?
Yeah, I'm actually going to say the Jets. Part of it is just because the number's so low. Yeah. Like, I could see Miami maybe being better than people expected. I don't think they're a 10-win team. Can the Jets did you have them at 4.5 or 5.5? I forget what you said.
So FanDuel had it as, it's weird the way they've set it up. You can pick all the way from 3.5 to 12.5 and bet on it, but their cleanest line at the spot is at 7.5. So I show it as 7.5 is Miami's, and I have the Jets at 5.5 is their -135 +115 is the odds in there. Technically the over 6.5 is only +125, but it looks like they're trying to peg it at between 5.5 and 6.
So yeah, I'll go with the Jets. I do think Aaron Glenn's a good coach. I don't know why the Jets, after 30 years of hiring first-time defensive head coaches, none of whom have worked, decided, what we need to turn this around? A first-time defensive head coach. But as far as defensive head coach, I mean, I don't know, Michael, am I wrong? The one offensive guy they tried was Adam Gase, who's one of the worst coaches and head coaches the NFL's had in the last 25 years. So good job for that one. But they have a good defense. They can run the ball. I'm not a big believer in Justin Fields, but again, they're kind of in that same boat with the Patriots where the AFC blows. They have a weak schedule, even by AFC standards. And they're the Jets. They're going to win 4 games through November and then back into a couple, like you said, and ruin their draft stock. So the number's just really low. I like the way they're set up. I'll take the Jets.
Yeah, Vegas agrees with you. Marisa, how about you?
I mean, Alex mentioning Adam Gase just gave me major PTSD. So I'm trying to get over that for a second quickly. Okay, so at 5.5, I took the Jets as well. I think things could break in their favor. I mean, Aaron Glenn, we've talked about him. I think there's a possibility he could squeak out 8 or 9 games. Now, I think things have to break pretty well. I mean, they have to break right for that to happen. But if he can fix this defense, who I had high expectations for this Jets defense last year, just based on what we've seen. So if he can fix that defense, and if Justin Fields can make plays with his legs and show that he can do a couple plays with his arms, I think that the Jets have an opportunity to go above that 5.5 for sure. But again, that's, things going well and things being cleaned up quite a bit.
So the next one was teams most likely to go under their Vegas over-under total. I kind of gave away my answer in the first one. I think that the variance on the Patriots one is the widest. Like, I could also see them coming just because it got to 8.5. So getting to where, like, that's the possibility. I also don't think it's crazy that because of playing the first place schedule, getting the Bills at like 10-7 or 11-6 because something went weird. Like, I could see that being where, like, hey, you've already got the division wrapped up and now you're, not stressed at the end of the season or resting people. I think that that's a possible outcome as well. But I think that I have by far the widest range on both ends for the Patriots. They're my cheater pick for both choices. Alex, how about you?
It's not a bad way to put it. Variance is a word I've used quite a bit with the Patriots team. I'm going to go with the Dolphins. I think that I don't think Mike McDaniel's a good head coach. I've been saying that for a few years. It's nice to see everybody catching up. He's not able to keep control of that organization. You got Tyreek Hill saying he's finally learned the playbook after 4 years. Are you kidding me? They have the most injury-prone quarterback in the league. They're going to put him behind a patchwork offensive line, which I saw last year firsthand what a potentially historically bad offensive line could do to derail a team, even with a decent defense. I also just think that's a team that has come so close and fallen apart. It's going to be kind of easy for guys to get discouraged. It feels like this core has kind of run its course. And if it starts out bad, especially if Tua gets hurt, that thing can spiral. I would not be surprised if the Dolphins end up being like a top 3, top 5 pick in the NFL draft next year. I just think it's, and then there's the whole thing where they can't beat teams over 500. And I think they play 8 or 9 of those this year based on the record last year. So I'm sorry, Marissa, I don't mean to eviscerate your whole team. This is just something I've been strong on. Like, I think the ceiling in Miami, they could be a fringe playoff team. The floor is tremendously low. I think if it gets bad, it could snowball and get really ugly really quickly.
It's like one of those parlays where you need it could hit really, really nice, but all it takes is one to fall apart and all of a sudden it goes. And I do think there's less so with the Patriots. I think there's enough momentum. Having May is the biggest piece where if things start slow, there's no change in course. There's no change in strategy. It's going there. If things start weirdly slow for either the Dolphins or Jets, you could see a front office where, like, all of a sudden, like, hey, do we trade a couple players at the trade deadline? Do we start to strategically position ourselves towards that draft pick? Whereas obviously that's not going to be the case with the Bills, but I think the Patriots are now pretty firmly in that direction of like, hey, no, we're going to keep pushing forward. I could see, the front offices in Miami or New England or New York being like, hey, things didn't start the way we wanted. Let's see what we can get for X and go that way. And Marissa, how about you?
So I was going to say, and not just front offices, and we see NFL coaches do this all the time. Does Mike McDaniel start doing weird stuff to try to save his job?
Yeah.
He does weird stuff now, not having to save his job. So who knows what that would look like?
Yeah. I've secretly, shared my jealousy of the Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes get this cheat code of fantastic coordinator who failed as a head coach and now has gone back to being a fantastic coordinator that just no one goes to again in Steve Spagnuolo. And I want that for Josh Allen and Sean McDermott on offense. I just want like a great offensive mind who does so badly as a head coach that they get fired, but are still a pretty brilliant offensive mind. And like, I've thrown out Shane Steichen, I've thrown out Kevin Stefanski, but like, I'll take Mike McDaniel. He can call plays for Josh Allen. Like, I'll resuscitate him over here. Marissa, where is your choice for team most likely to go under their Vegas win total by 2?
So it's hard to hear from Alex to say all the things he said, but I'm going to mimic all of the things he said. You would think, as somebody who this isn't my job to report, I do it as a fan, that I would like have optimism, but I picked the Dolphins. a lot of the things share the same sentiments. I don't know that going into our game in Madrid that Mike McDaniel might fully be our head coach. Anthony Weaver might be at the helm there, depending on how this first part of the season plays out. I truly think it is a boom or bust kind of thing. Like Tua has shown us that he's not able to stay healthy. Yes, he did 2 years ago. But again, even with that, we had a 3-4 game lead on the Bills, and we all saw what happened there. So I think if everything clicks, Tua stays healthy, the cornerback room doesn't go to shambles since we have no depth there, the O-line stays super healthy, and all of that plays out perfectly, I think they hit the over on this. But realistically, based on time and time again, I just don't see that happening. We've seen that if Tua doesn't stay healthy, that this offensive playbook that Mike McDaniel has is really complicated for any other quarterback to come in and try to win some games with. Yes, we have Zach Wilson. He's apparently looked great in camp. Quinn Ewers, who's looked great in camp. But again, actually using that playbook and playing it in the game where you have this offense who is anticipating you're throwing your ball before your receiver even gets there is so different to these quarterbacks. So my guess is, Tua misses a few games. The offensive line stays a mess. The injury bug plagues us like they always have. And I hate to be that pessimistic fan, but I just haven't seen enough change in this offseason to make me think that we're headed in a much different direction than we were last year.
Yeah, makes sense. Michael?
Yeah, it might be boring to copy you guys, but I have to go with Miami as well. I think as much as I like the ceiling, they just struggle. Like their weaknesses are in places where I think the losses can stockpile. If you have a banged up starting quarterback, and for me personally, I think the backup option here is maybe about as weak as it gets, regardless of training camp performance.
How would you know? No, I'm just kidding.
I know. I mean, I've heard all the Zach Wilson hype and truthers in the world, and didn't amount to too much over. We got a nice Monday night win against the Bills a couple of years ago, relieving Aaron Rodgers. I guess that was the peak of his tenure there. But and just a cornerback too. I think that's a position where if you're weak and that doesn't pan out well, it's just going to be really like the points could stockpile really quickly. Yeah. Defensively, even if they have a strong pass rush. So, and then the other contenders here, I like the Pats floor. I feel like with the veteran additions that they made, they're pretty well-rounded. And then with the Jets, they're just so low already that and they already won 5 games last year. So I don't know if I see them going too far under it. And the Bills have been too reliable for me to, obviously they could go under 12. Or 11, wherever it's at. But I think Miami has the highest likelihood of going way under.
Super stoked about that.
It's very excited. Very excited. So now let's have a little bit of fun with some of the fun players around the division. Obviously, the defending league MVP is in the division where Josh Allen won that award for the first time last year. So we'll kind of take him out of the running and go through who we see as the division MVP, non-Josh Allen division. I think I picked Drake May. Like I do like some of the package. I like the raising the floor. They put him into an unenviable position last year with I've joked with a couple other Patriots content friends that people are frustrated. They're like, yeah, this might be like the 20th to 25th best offensive line in the league. Like, yeah, but ranking them 32nd last year was a technicality because there's only 32 teams. They were so much worse than the 31st best offensive line. They're becoming the 22nd best offensive line is a leap year of acceleration. And I do think, again, with whatever is this version of Stephon Diggs. I love Pop Douglas. I wanted Kyle Williams in the draft, like adding those kind of pieces, just a professional tight ends and being in that kind of position. What Travion Henderson could turn into. There's enough pieces there that, again, I joke. I think that the hype's gone a little bit too far for people getting excited, but there's reason for the hype. Whatever that number ends up being, there's reason for that hype. And I think it all centers around nothing in the NFL matters until you get the quarterback. And I think New England has a real quarterback. So I'll start with Drake May, which I'm not sure it'll be a unanimous one again, but there's a non-zero chance. Marisa, who is your AFC East division MVP in the non-Josh Allen division?
Yeah, I mean, we know it's a quarterback award, right? So for me, it has to be Drake May. This is really hard for me, a hard pill for me to swallow. We finally didn't have to worry about the Patriots for 2 years, and now we're worried about them again. I mean,
it's super annoying. It's not fair that they got 2 whole years of hardship. However, did you survive?
That's the biggest.
Right,
I saw Alex smile.
Hang on, it was 4. All right,
there was that Cam Newton year in there. That was a tough one.
The Cam Newton season might be the peak. The first Mac Jones year was fun, but in retrospect, we should have been petrified the entire time.
Yeah, but still, I mean, it's not fair. So anyways, I digress. I would say Drake May. You mean last year he had a heck of a season with very little help around him. I'm a huge fan of Rabel. I think he's going to bring big things to this team. I think Stephon Diggs, we know he's had his issues with the Bills. He was with them. But I think if he can give even 75% of what he used to be, I still think that he can be a pretty heavy wide receiver in the league. So I'm going to have to go with Drake May.
Michael?
Yeah, I guess Drake May is the pretty easy pick here. So I guess to switch it up, I'll throw Garrett Wilson's name into the ring because I think he could have maybe the highest target share in the league this year for receivers. I mean, this is a guy who already has been racking up the targets the first 3 years. Now he reunites with his college quarterback, who is known for being a quarterback who likes to target his first receiver, struggles to go through his reads. And this is in a receiver room that loses Devontae Adams. There's very little competition for Garrett Wilson in this offense. So it's going to be it's going to revolve around Garrett Wilson as much as any offense in this league is going to revolve around one receiver. So if this Jets passing attack is going to be competent enough for them to win games, it's going to revolve around Garrett Wilson. So I think he has a chance to make, especially coming off his contract extension. I think there's untapped potential with his deep ball that, Fields could help unlock. There are deficiencies in his game, but he can air it out. That's something that he has. And Garrett Wilson hasn't had a quarterback who could do that in his career. So I think Garrett Wilson has a chance to be very valuable for a non-quarterback this year.
People also forget how many targets DJ Moore got in that Justin Fields season in Chicago, and that he is a first read, run the ball, first read, run the ball guy. And if the first read's there, he throws the ball to the first read. So it's certainly something he could get peppered with those targets. Alex?
So I was worried I was going to sound like a homer taking Drake May. I was ready to say Breece Hall because like Michael said, if the Jets pass game is good enough to win them games, I don't think it will be. I think they'll recognize that. Defensive coaches love to establish the run. They might run the ball 35, 40 times a game.
Yeah.
And Breece Hall, he had 266 touches last year. That might go up. But no, it's Drake May. It's absolutely Drake May. Some of that is by default. There's kind of a lack of offensive talent around the division as a whole. But, you look at what Drake May started to build with last year, like you guys talked about, the pieces that they've put around him. It's very encouraging. And if he can actually tap into that potential like people think he's going to, not just AFC East MVP. I don't think he's going to outright win it this year, but a guy that maybe starts to put himself into the fringe of that conversation.
Yeah, I like it.
I will say too that I think that Tyreek Hill, you mentioned he said he didn't know the offense the first couple years. If he could put up 1,700 yards year 1 and year 2 and not know the offense, I mean, chances are he could have a decent season. Imagine what it's like if he actually knows how the offense works. So, but
could be amazing things.
Could be great.
He's throwing him the ball.
That's true.
Yeah. Come on and again, it's
I'm picking on the Dolphins. I feel bad. I don't mean to pick on the Dolphins.
It's that parlay set, but I almost think that's part of where. Again, I hadn't looked at any of the win total numbers until tonight, and I was just a little bit surprised. My initial reaction was, I expected to be like, hey, I actually think the Patriots should be second. I'm surprised the Dolphins are rated above them. But seeing that it actually already was, and that the Patriots were already projected at a higher win total and higher division winning odds for it, I was like, oh, well, I mean, Tua could stay healthy, like that. That still is in the range of possible outcomes
Things
here.
can fly. I mean, things can happen.
You never know. You never
You
know.
never
Crazy
know.
things can happen. All right. How about on the defensive side of the ball? I do think I will say a guy that I am an enormous fan of and have been for a long, long time. Quinnen Williams is like putting a football jersey on a grizzly bear. Like, he is just an unbelievable player. And I do think that maybe how sideways the season got has kind of taken away from where it is, but now getting some of that mindset back, and I think the focus Aaron Glenn's going to have in kind of rebuilding some of the culture there, that's the kind of guy you center an entire strategy around, just letting him wreak havoc on the other teams here. And I think that if there's somebody that's going to make a name for themselves with similar to the way we saw like Dexter Lawrence all of a sudden pop out with that kind of thing, I think that Quinnen Williams is very much in that range with some of those other guys and should be talked about in the way that a Chris Jones is talked about, or that the spike Jeffrey Simmons has. And we've seen different guys have those seasons and then some of that kind of rise and crest back down. I could see that kind of season for Quinnen Williams here, and I'm a huge fan of him. So he'll be my pick for Division Defensive Player of the Year. I think we're back to you, Marissa, to start. Who is your choice for Division Defensive Player of the Year?
Mine is going to be second-year rookie Chop Robinson. I think he has an opportunity to have 13 plus sack potential. I think with Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips back and fully healthy, Zach Sealer, who's, killing it, and rookie Kenneth Grant, I think he has the potential to really have some open space to get at these guys. And, not last year, we know he was a defensive rookie of the year nominee. He had 6 sacks last year. So I think Chop is, and he continues to just impress. And granted it's, training camps, but he continues to impress. And I think he's somebody that opposing teams are really going to have to watch out for. He feels like a dog to me, like that dog mentality. And I think he's going to go after it this year.
I like it. Michael?
I mean, in terms of MVP, I think Minkah Fitzpatrick has a really good case, because we've already talked about the corner question marks in Miami. So he's kind of got to carry that whole secondary on his back. So I think him returning to Miami could be something that single-handedly kind of glues that secondary together. And if the Dolphins do have a good season, it's hard to see it happening without, Minkah Fitzpatrick being the vintage version of himself. So I think I'm going to go with Minkah.
I like it. Alex?
I'm going to go with Christian Gonzalez. He was a second-team All-Pro last year in what was essentially his first full NFL season, and he's looked like a significant step better in this camp, and already a top 5 corner in football. I think he puts himself in the conversation with Patrick Surtain going into the year, and then when the season's over, he'll be eligible for the extension. He'll probably reset Surtain's cornerback record contract. So Quinnen Williams isn't a bad one. I think he's probably the best front player in the division. But I think Christian Gonzalez has a chance to be, a premier, maybe the premier corner in the National Football League.
So are you saying like the Commanders made a mistake taking Emmanuel Forbes? Or you think that's still to be seen? To be seen?
Okay. Little bit.
It still I screamed to my television on draft night when I saw what was happening and where he was going to fall. And I was like, all right, well, at least, the Commanders will take Gonzalez, so the Patriots don't get him. They take Emmanuel Forbes.
And I liked Emmanuel Forbes a little bit in that draft, but Gonzalez was my guy that I was like, I wasn't putting him in all my mock drafts that year. I was writing a disclaimer at the beginning. If Gonzalez is there, take him, but I don't think he will be. Yeah. So we're doing this. And I still can't believe, and they got to kind of screw over the Jets a little bit in the process.
Yeah. I don't know if that turned out as well for the Steelers as they wanted it to. So it's like one of those weird combinations that everybody got screwed. It was a fun one. All right, Michael, what do you think your best positional unit is in the AFC East?
Best positional, easy answer is just say Bills quarterback, I guess. But
darn it, you took my
past
answer.
That, I think. All right, I'll leave that one out there. I'll pick a different one. Let's go with, I think this is a sleeper one. I really think the Jets offensive line could be one of the better units in the league this year. I mentioned it earlier. You have 3 first-round picks on there. Olu Fashanu, drafted last year, came in at left tackle, played well towards the end of the year. Armand Membu, top 10 pick this year at right tackle. Elijah Vera Tucker has ascended into a top guard in the league. Joe Tittman was a top 10-ish type of center last year, and John Simpson was about a top 10 left guard. So best unit in the division is definitely it's an upside prediction on my part here, but the pieces are there, and they have a new offensive line coach. Their previous one, Keith Carter, I don't know if you guys have heard, but when he was in Tennessee, his players would knock him. Taylor Lewan went on he just eviscerated him in the media. So he was not known as a good offensive line coach. They've reset that position and the entire coaching staff. They have a lot of talent. I really think this offensive line is going to surprise a lot of people, and we'll see what Justin Fields can do with that. But I think he's going to be put in a good position behind that group.
Alex, your top positional unit within the division.
Yeah, I'm torn. I think it's the Jets defensive front or the Patriots secondary. The Jets just have a ton of dogs up front, and it's not just a good pass rush. You know, there are teams that have a good pass rush, but maybe don't have a great front. They can get run on. They can get sloppy. I think the Jets kind of have all their bases covered between that group. It runs deep. It's flexible. It's multifaceted. And then the Patriots secondary, there's a big if here because guys have to stay healthy. And Carlton Davis has struggled to stay healthy during his career. So is Jabril Pepper. So is Kyle Duggar. But if you have Gonzalez and Davis on the outside, Marcus Jones in the slot, Alex Austin, their third boundary corners at a good camp, I think Peppers is one of the most underrated players in the league. Kyle Duggar can play if he's healthy, which he hasn't been in a little bit. But like if all those guys are full go, that's a secondary that's going to be really hard to throw on. So I like the ceiling there, but there's some big ifs with the health. So I'll go Jets defensive front.
Obviously, I do think sometimes we forget that, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle is a hell of a receiving core. I think that, we have everyone's already assumed that no one's going to stay healthy in Miami and everything's going to go poorly. And it might, but there's still some talent there. Just a shout out to the underrated unit of the Bills, the fact that they put together not me, but Brandon Thorne is the guy that I go to for all offensive line work, and he has them as the third best offensive line in the league with no first round picks on the first round on the offensive line. Aaron Cromer is a magician. I won't put him, up there, in the lore of Patriots, history. But, you talk about now who's left as the best offensive line coaches in the league. And I think he's right up there with everyone there, and having kind of a offensive line is seen as a weak link unit, and having where I think Thorne had their lowest ranked guy is like 13th in the league, but everybody as in their position as somewhere between, I think it's Spencer Brown third and everybody else in between, just good everywhere. And then you give that kind of extra time to Josh Allen. You see for the first time last year, having like a legitimate run game was something we hadn't seen through all of Josh Allen's tenure. So just a shout out to the offensive line for the Bills that I think has put together a sneaky one where no one makes any argument that any one of the guys is the best guy at their position, but everyone's good. And being in the offensive line, when everyone's good, things turn out well. Marisa, what is your best positional unit in the AFC East?
I feel like if any Dolphin fans are watching this, I'm going to lose followers because I haven't really picked the Dolphins from many categories, but I'm going Jets defensive line. I think that if Jermaine Johnson comes back and he can stay healthy, I think it's a pretty scary group. I mean, you've got Will McDonald, Quinnen Williams. I think there's a lot of real potential there for that unit. And I think it's one of the best defensive lines in the division when everyone stays healthy. So, like I said, again, I expected a much different defense last year. I expect big things from that defensive line this year. And if they can stay healthy, I think it's something that's going to be a point of contention when all of us have to play them twice a year. So.
All right, last couple ones before we wrap up here. We'll pick some rookies of the year. Maybe some guys that we're excited about coming out here. I have been obnoxiously excited about wanting a large human on the defensive line. So I'll take a homer pick with Deion Walker, even though I don't think he's going to play enough to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. And on the offensive side, we didn't take any offense really, really far into the draft. So there's a couple sneaky pieces out there. I think our best contributor on the Bills is going to be like Jackson Hawes is a blocking tight end. So it's probably the fun of Travion Henderson for me is probably the pick. But Alex, who is your pick for division offensive rookie of the year?
Yeah, I mean, Henderson's got to be up there, right? If we're not going lineman, obviously, I think Will Campbell's a tremendous player, but
probably the most impact for any rookie is probably going to need to be Campbell.
Yeah, I like Henderson. I like his upside. The thing is, Josh McDaniels is very aware of overworking running backs and likes to spread everything out. And I think that Travion Henderson could make a tremendous impact. I don't know that he's going to have tremendous numbers. I think it's going to be a lot of bang for the buck other than a full volume attack.
More Ramondre than what people are talking about.
Right. So, I mean, across the board, not a lot of offensive picks in the division, especially not skill position players. I did like the Jets adding Mason Taylor. I think Mason Taylor was a pretty underrated player in this draft, especially considering how NFL ready he is at such a young age. So to me, like, those are the two big offensive playmakers. We'll see what happens with Kyle Williams with the Patriots, but
if you guys didn't have Pop Douglas, I might have picked Kyle Williams just if he could have got funneled more of those, but
yeah, I just think
needing to play more
buried
outside. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's really between Mason Taylor and Travion Henderson for who makes the biggest impact as a rookie in the division.
Marissa, are you going to take the brave stance of Jackson Hawes as your offensive rookie of the year?
No, I actually took Mason Taylor with the Jets. I think, from what I've heard and seen and all that good stuff, he's having a fantastic first couple of weeks in training camp. Justin Fields, I feel, is probably going to use tight ends a lot in his passing game. He's not really known for pushing the ball down the field to wide receivers very much. So I honestly think that Mason Taylor could have a borderline, like, pretty big, like, rookie season this year. And I think he's someone we're going to have to watch out for as well.
I like it. Michael?
A lot of Jets love these last couple questions.
No,
you wouldn't think that
love.
this is projected to be the worst team in the division. I guess we'll see what happens. But ditto on what you guys said with Mason Taylor. He's probably going to be their number 2 passing target. They don't have a true second wide receiver. As you said, Fields does like to go to his tight ends, kind of fits with his play style, first read to check down sort of processing. So I think Mason Taylor is a great pick, but I have to give love to offensive linemen. I'm going to go with Will Campbell in New England. I love that you have a talented quarterback going into his second year and you get him a left tackle in the top of the draft with elite athleticism, elite production coming out of a powerhouse college team. So that's just such a great weapon to give your core. To me, that's a weapon. I know some people might not consider an offensive lineman that's a weapon to me, because I've seen young quarterbacks with the Jets have to suffer from some terrible blocking in front of them. And you see the impact that has. So the fact that Drake May can stand there behind Will Campbell on his blind side, I think is going to make a massive impact. It's just a big reason why I feel like Drake May is going to be solid. And as much as we hate to admit it, it just feels like it's a good setup that they have for him there.
So, Alex, this is a tougher one because a lot of the teams didn't go defense early. The Bills did, but the first one got hurt, and the other 3 are all going to rotate in smaller contributing roles. Did you have anybody that stood out to you maybe as a draft pick you liked or that you see some upside with for a defensive rookie of the year?
So I will say every year the Bills draft a player I love in the draft, and it kills me. And this year it was Deion Walker. I'm a big fan of his. But to take it to another level, Kenneth Grant was one of the most underrated players in this draft this year. I think he got done a total disservice. I think too much of the hype went to Mason Graham. That probably should have gone to Kenneth Grant. And I don't necessarily think Mason Graham is a top 5 pick if he's not playing next to Kenneth Grant at Michigan. I don't think that pick made a lot of sense for the Dolphins. They had a lot bigger needs, but hell, if he's going to be there, I think he'll make plays. So I'm a big fan of Kenneth Grant. I think he's a great player. I'm really looking forward to watching him this year.
So you'll recognize the first part, but the important part is the back part.
Oh, that's great. There you go.
So I had been begging them to just take a large human for a couple of years now, and they kept not doing it, and it hurt my feelings. And then they take a 6'7", 345-pound guy. So the other guys at the network challenged me like, well, you got to buy the jersey now. So I even took it a step further, and I literally bought a large human jersey. Yeah. So yeah, I'm a little excited about it. And again, it's one of those guys where he fell for a reason, the fractured back, the you know, how that reflected in his play, but the chance that like, hey, if you just go back a year in time, a guy that was playing like that as a 19-year-old in the SEC, and at that point was a top 10 pick in the draft, that like, hey, in the 4th round, well, I'll take a shot. I'll see if we can recapture some of what that was.
Hey,
Marisa, anybody stood out to you? Go ahead, Alex.
I was just gonna say, I rode the Joe Milton roller coaster. Like, you don't got to tell me about fun tools late in the draft. I'm all about that.
Speaking of which, hey, someday I won't have to deal with like a Mitch Trubisky in my life. Just go pick a fun project guy. Like, if Josh Allen doesn't play, nothing matters anyways. Like, just go pick a fun project guy. Like, I don't need Mitch Trubisky holding the stern. Like, you know, we'll be fine. Marisa, any rookies that stood out to you on the defensive side?
Yes, and I'm so tired of going after Alex because he always steals my thunder with his answers because they're mine. I chose the wrong seat at the board game to do that with him. Yes, Kenneth Grant is my decision for that as well. I mean, like I said, I mean, I think Chop is going to have an amazing year, but with that front line, I mean, with Phillips, Chubb, Sealer, Chop, I mean, I think Kenneth Grant is going to have a lot of favorable matchups this season that he can absolutely take advantage of. He's one of those rookies that's going to be getting, I mean, he's going to be there from the jump. So I see him having a really big year this season, and I get to say something positive about the Dolphins too. So that's exciting.
Every moment you can get. Yeah. Michael, how about you?
Yeah.
I just got to copy you guys again. I have to go with Kenneth Grant here, especially playing next to Sealer, who's already an elite run stopping tackle over there. Like that could be such a good combo, stopping the run. And that's a sneaky part of why I think the Dolphins have a ceiling. Is like, if things do pan out in some of these other question areas, the fact that they could be really good at stopping the run between these two guys could help them win games late in the year. So going to go with Kenneth Grant.
All right. And I added in a final one is I just called it Breakout Player just to give everybody kind of a chance to talk to everybody. You guys already mentioned my guy. I joke that I'm not 100% who the most underrated defensive player in the AFC is, but I know his name's Zach and he plays defensive line. And I don't know if it's Zach Allen or Zach Sealer, but it's one of those two. And they're just absolute monsters. And to see both of them get paid to be there, that like, for my money, I think Zach Sealer is the best player on the Dolphins. Like, I just think he's the best football player on the team. And he's the kind of guy that every coach would love to have. And you give a guy like Kenneth Grant that kind of guy to show up to work next to every day. It's just, you know, I don't love that as a Bills fan, but you love that to see like, hey, a guy with his kind of physical gifts, so like, hey, just go like if I'm anyone in the Dolphins, like just go follow that guy and do every single thing he does. Just do every single thing that guy does. And he took his 7th round potential and turned it into this. Just go do what that guy does. And I think that's the kind of guy you want. The Bills had that in Kyle Williams for a long time, a guy that just played well beyond his physical gifts in what he turned his career into. And Zach Sealer is my kind of guy that, not that he had people who know football have known about him for a while, but now seeing him get a little bit more shine in this big payday, I was just really happy to see a guy that, like, in preview shows, it would always be, it used to be Javon Holland, but it would always be talking about Javon Holland and Zach Sealer, and that he was the guy that I really wanted to key in on. So, Marisa, we'll let you go first on this one.
Yeah, and I just want to touch on that real quick, if you don't mind. Zach Sealer, I mean, 100%. If we could have a team of 52 Zach Sealers, that would be amazing. I mean, the offense wouldn't work well, but I mean, it would be incredible. Yeah, it'd be incredible to have. I mean, and his story is just so amazing. I mean, lived in a trailer for 2 years. I mean, he just didn't know what life was going to bring, and he's just such an awesome dude. So shout out to him. So I didn't pick somebody from my team. I picked Khalil Shakir with Buffalo. I think that Josh Allen, I mean, they need more from the wide receiver position, and he gives them a little bit more than they did last year, and he might be the final puzzle piece in this for that Bills team. I mean, over 800 yards last season. If he can be that 1,000-yard wide receiver for the Bills and have, 6 or more touchdowns, I think that's what takes the Bills over get over that hump of Kansas City and all of that. And, you've seen Josh Allen do a lot with nothing. And so I think this is a potential guy who can have a pretty breakout year with the arm behind Josh Allen.
So a sneaky stat for Khalil Shakir is most guys who are hyper efficient early in their career, as the volume goes up, you kind of trade that volume for the efficiency. Khalil Shakir sneakily has gone from 25 to 45 to 100 targets his first 3 years. And each year, even starting at a very highly efficient rate, his yards per route run has increased each of those 3 seasons. And those are usually indicators of guys. That's also similar of what you saw with like Amon-Ra St. Brown and some other guys who, as they progressed, showed that, they can actually carry a greater workload of what it is. And I think people see him as one of those gadgety slot receivers. He's actually the same size as Stephon Diggs. Like he's sneaky, a little bit bigger than people. Not that big, but like he's 5'11", 195. Like he's the size of a lot of receivers in the NFL. He's not like a little twitchy gadget guy, Cole Beasley type guy. So just something that's out there. I will see. It doesn't seem like something they're going to funnel a ton towards one guy, but I won't be surprised if Shakir leads them in targets again with maybe even more than they had last year. Michael, who is your division breakout player or someone to watch that you wanted to shine a light on?
I'm going to go with Will McDonald on the Jets. He already had sort of a breakout year. Well, he definitely had what I think would be called a breakout year last year. He got up to 10.5 sacks, but I think there's another leap in store for him that's really going to put him on a national level. He was only 235 last year, one of the lightest edges in the league. He's up to 250. He's added some power and strength to the speed and the bend that he already had. So I think that's going to add just a new element to his pass rush game. He already has a great spin move. He's extremely bendy around the corner, which is huge for finishing sacks. And, sacks are what get you that recognition around the league. So you add the threat of an improved bull rush to that. This is also going to be a more blitz heavy scheme. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities to open up stunts and picks and things like that to just get him more room into the backfield. I think there is another sack leap in store for him, even off the 10.5 that he had last year. So I think Will McDonald's going to put himself in some interesting conversations this year.
I like it. Alex, how about you? Who is your breakout player?
I'm tempted to go Matt Collins just because he had an awesome practice today and he's been super involved in the Patriots offense. And that seems like it could be a fun thing. I'm actually going to go with one of the Dolphins signings, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. Is a sneaky good pickup for them. I always think he's kind of been an underrated player and not a guy that's an explosive playmaker, but just does a good job of consistently taking what's available and what the defense is giving him. And when you have teams sitting deep on Tyreek Hill and on Jalen Waddle, I just think there's going to be a ton of that taking a profit available. Now, we'll see if they actually do it. But I think he has the potential to be like a sneaky, hyper-productive player. Got to actually pan out, which is kind of something we keep saying about Miami. Will it actually? But they needed that kind of guy that could sort of just sit down in space and capitalize on the gravity created by these two great wide receivers. And I think he's somebody that's really good at doing that. But this is a Bills podcast. I know you guys like Matt Collins, and he just came off BUP last week. He's already running with the ones, caught 2 touchdowns to joint practice today. He's like their only receiver over 6'1". They seem to really like him.
So I'm curious how he's utilized there. And you guys annoyingly paid him more money than I was hoping, because he's, in my opinion, like the perfect wide receiver 5 on a winning team, where he'll play gunner on special teams, run the for the love of the game routes, actually make some pretty clutch, sneaky catches when you need it, but you're never counting on him for anything. And,
those are the kind of receivers the Patriots love to count on, honestly, the last few years.
So I was a little annoyed that you guys paid him enough, and he deserved a nice paycheck here, because he contributes. He is a football player. He is a guy who is going to play, 200 special team snaps and play his heart out. He run blocks like a monster. Like, he checks all those other boxes, but you don't want to depend on him for offensive production. You want it to be a bonus in what you get. So a lot of that's going to come in the development of some of those younger guys. Can some of those previous year's draft picks now step into, can Booty, can Baker, can, some of those other guys really step into Jalen Polk, somebody step into the more reliable route, and it's not there. But honestly, if you end up needing it to be Pop Douglas, Kyle Williams, and Matt Collins, you're probably okay. Like, it's probably going to be all right.
So the base 11 for the Patriots has been Diggs, Pop, and Kayshon Boutte, but Bootie's the X, and he's been inconsistent in his career. He's not a tradition. He's had a really good camp, but he's been inconsistent. He's also not a traditional X. So throwing Matt Collins in there, they've used him a little bit at the Z too. But especially, like, I think he's a play a lot in the red zone, because again, they desperately need the size. They are just not a big wide receiver room. He had the most successful year of his career by far was in Vegas with Josh McDaniels, who's now back as the offense coordinator. So he's somebody I think McDaniels likes, and McDaniels might be able to get a little bit more out of.
So as we go around here to finish things out, I really wanted to have a spicier take for the final division order, but like, boringly, I kind of think that Vegas has it right. I wanted to find something fun to just to either, try to dash Patriots fans' hopes or find some other fun path here. I do think it's not as out of the question as people are already deciding that the Dolphins could still have a good season. They do need a lot of health to break their way, but I think it's more feasible than people have already decided the outcome of. But I'll be boring, and I do think it's going to go Bills, Patriots, Dolphins, Jets. Why don't you guys give us your final thing, and then also let us know some of the next stuff you have coming up on your network, or something fans can come check out. Obviously, a lot of our folks do poke around some of the other shows as they start to prep for upcoming matchups, other things to watch. So let the folks know why they should be coming out to your network to come check things out. Marisa, we'll start with you.
Sure. I'm going to do the same order. I think Buffalo is probably going to clinch the division by the middle of November, and the other three teams, I mean, I think it could fall anyway, but even though I've been really high on the Jets, clearly with my answers, I have it going Bills, Patriots, Dolphins, Jets. But I don't feel really confident. I mean, it could be a toss-up, but I feel most confident that it's going to be the Bills, and that hurts every ounce of my soul to say that. So as far as what I have going on, Dolphins Talk right now, I'm basically just I'm known over there for my interviews, having great people on. This past month has been jammed packed between Tom Pelissero, Louis Riddick, Damian Woody. I've had a lot of really great people on who have provided some great insight, and we asked them about,
I love the Louis Riddick interview, by the way. It was fantastic.
Thanks. Yeah, he's so incredibly talented and smart. So we actually have a slew of interviews I have coming up in the next coming weeks. So yeah, Dolphins Talk, and then during the season, I'm going to be on there once a week, probably doing a collab with somebody else from the team that we're going to be playing. But we're a daily Dolphins podcast. So in season, you can catch us every day if you want to talk Dolphins football.
Awesome. Michael, how about you?
I'm going to mix it up a little bit, and this might be surprising because I've said some positive things about this team so far, but I'm going to stick with the top two, Buffalo to New England, but I'm going to put the Jets third, and I'm going to put the Dolphins on the bottom. I just feel like that floor it's scary, and I could see it breaking that way to where, it could just fall to 3-4 wins. The bottom falls out. I could see it going the other way too, but I just like the Jets floor better than the Dolphins, I feel like, because of that offensive line and the defense. So I'm going to put the Jets in third. And as a couple of you guys have said already, the Jets just have that tendency of winning games they're not supposed to at the end of the year. So I'm going to go with that. And yeah,
I won't lie.
You could listen to me on the
nothing would
Jets
make me happier if the Jets have a Patriots moment where there's a spot where they have the number one pick and then they lose a couple final games, or they win a couple final games that takes that away. I won't lie. That would bring me a small amount of joy.
We're more than used to that. I mean, you had 2020 choking away Trevor Lawrence. 2018, they lost their way. They had to go trade up for Sam Darnold because they played their way out of being, or 2017 going into the 2018 draft. So that is Jets fans are more than used to that. It's the expectation at this point if it comes down to that. But Yeah, you could check me out on the Cool Your Jets podcast every week. Read my work at jetsxfactor.com, where film and analytics focus. So it's all deep into the numbers or the film, whichever side of that you prefer, in a good blend of both. We have 3 different writers who have been on site at training camp. Robbie Sabo, my co-owner, has been doing some awesome breakdowns of what he's seen at camp. So yeah, definitely check us out at Jets X Factor.
Beautiful. And Alex, take us home.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the same order there. Bills, Patriots, Jets, Dolphins. I just think that the Dolphins floor is too low, and the Jets will shoot themselves in the foot and win just too many games to get the player they actually need to get better. You can check out my work, 985thesportshub.com, Patriots Hub podcast on the 985 The Sports Hub YouTube page, Catch-22 podcast on patriots.com with Evan Lazar, and Patriots Beat podcast on CLNS Media with Brian Hines.
Do you sleep? I mean, goodness gracious.
No, that's kind of a running joke in the podcast chats. We had joint practice today, so I was at the stadium at like 9:00. That wrapped up around 1:30. Filled in on our 2 to 6 show today on the radio. Came home, had to write my practice notebook that I never got to, and then I still have more writing to do after this. So,
and now you're stuck with us guys and gals.
You know what? It's this time of year, and at the end of the day, I'm sitting around talking ball, and I couldn't ask for anything more. I love it.
Yeah. No, it's a great way to say it. And I think obviously each of you came incredibly highly recommended from folks we've had on the shows. And I consciously wanted to have some folks on we haven't had a chance to talk with before. So I think you guys all did a fantastic job. I'm sure all the fans listening here, the chat was very, very appreciative as well. Appreciate you guys. But on behalf of the team here at Cover One, we're very excited to welcome you guys here and appreciate everybody listening. Please give us that like, rating, review on the way out. Thank you to our sponsor, Southern Tier Brewing Company, and our friends over at William & Tar Law Offices. We appreciate them very, very much. But on behalf of everyone here, Marisa, Michael, Alex, I am your host, Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.